Hello and welcome to another steel guitar coaching session. This one's with Matt, and basically we go over in this one a couple of different things. We use Hank Williams' Cold Cold Heart as an example to show how you might use sixth intervals, sixth harmonization of the melody, um, and why it would be important to learn your major scale in sixths so that you can then uh, find your different positions for harmonizing something like a melody. You're familiar with the different positions that you might need. We talk a little bit about slant bar and how you can harmonize that scale using slants. Although of course you can do it in straight bar if you like. Um, that's what a lot of the video is. We talk a little bit about Don Helms' comping style, some of the things that make that up as well. Um, Let me know if you have any questions about any of the techniques in the video, or if there's certain issues. Always looking to improve the videos. So thanks so much, and please enjoy the video.
So last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, we talked about, doing a lot of hand exercises, going across the strings, getting each individual finger to kind of work through the physical movement and kind of trying to zoom in on the details of, what does it take for my thumb to go? And sort of doing things slowly and kind of, intentionally, we'll say. We also talked about tunings and their relationships a little bit. I'll probably make a video that just does a deep dive on, like, hey, this is why this tuning, or this is how it's related to that one. And so I feel like that stuff's kind of confusing if you don't really know.
Yeah.
So do you mind showing me a little bit of what you've either worked on or, maybe just the exercises, or if you've been, I think you were working on a song at one point. You sent me a clip.
Working on some fills.
Yeah. Yeah, some grips going up and down. I hear some harmonics there. So why don't we do this? Just to get you started with a little bit of some of the language, because I know, you want to be playing songs. So let's take a look at what Don Helms might have done with Hank Williams on something like a 1-4-5 type of progression, or like a blues even. And remind me, what key do you have there?
Or E.
E6 or A6?
C6 right here.
C6. Okay. Let me retune my guitar to C6 real quick. All right. Okay, so let's take something, say, in the key of E. So that would be at what fret?
Third.
That would be E flat. So if we count up, one fret, you'd be at F, and then you'd be in F sharp or G flat. I'm sorry, well, you'd be in C. You'd be in C sharp or D flat, and then D, and then you'd have E flat, and then the next one up, fret 4 would be E. So we're at fret 4. One thing that Don Helms did a lot, he kind of did what you might call durs. And so he would do things like sort of that sort of thing, which is he's just taking his top 2 strings, which is the third and the root, and he's playing both of those strings together, and he's sliding into it about a half a step below. And he would kind of really milk that. So, you know, I'm trying to think of like an intro or something. So maybe something like so something like Cold Cold Heart, you know, he plays that intro, and then when he gets back to the root chord, he might play dur. And it's also something that kind of you can play after somebody sings a vocal phrase.
Yeah.
You know? So like, even if Hank were to sing that, you know, I don't remember the words there, but why can't I see, or why can't I see your doubtful mind and melt your cold, cold heart? Something like that. Let's see. You were working on your harmonics. One thing that that Don Helms would do a lot of times, you could do this over like the 1 chord or the 4 chord. So if we're in the key of E, our 1 chord's E. That's strings 5, 4, and 2. And then if you add the 1 string, that's your major arpeggio. We're skipping string 3, the A note in our C major 6 tuning, skipping string 3. If we go up to the 9th fret, 5 frets up, we're at the A chord. So one thing a lot of times that Don would do, he would arpeggiate the chords. So he would just play something like, or maybe he would add the 6 in there. And he might do that same thing when you arrived at the 4 chord. So maybe it was something like, you know, he'd play. So he would just go up the chord, you know, when you get to the 4 chord, or the song would arrive there. And you can do these kinds of things with those harmonics that you were playing earlier.
Yeah.
So for example, you know, let's say you played the intro to Cold Cold Heart or something where it's like, then you could play harmonics. Yeah. You can do the same thing when you like arrive at a 4 chord. So you'd say maybe, Sorry, I got the paper here in the way, so it's hard to see where the fret is. So those are nice things that you kind of have already figured out some of these techniques, where they might have placed, where like Don might have placed that kind of thing. So let me show you this maneuver that I just played, that Don would have done. So when he wants to go to the 4 chord, a lot of times he'll take strings 1 and 2 at his home key. So we're in the key of E at the 4th fret, strings 1 and 2. He'll play, and then he'll go back 2 frets, and then he'll go down a set of strings. He'll play strings 2 and 3, and he'll walk chromatically right back up to his chord. So when you get to the 4 chord, you can play strings 2 and 3. You know, those would be the 3 and the 5 of the 4 chord. You know, so you don't have a root there, but so for example, if you wanted to go from 1 to 4, you could walk there like, and you can just play quarter notes. That's probably what he played, you know, in the bar right before you get to the 4 chord. You just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. There's a lot of songs that, so like, for example, you know, a lot of the country songs are simply 1, 4, and 5, but every now and then, like maybe on a bridge or an alternate part, there might be a 2 dominant chord. You know, like for example, Your Cheating Heart, or sorry, not Your Cheating Heart. What's that song? Hey Good Looking. Sorry, Hey Good Looking. Hey Good Looking goes to the 2 at some point, and then plays a dominant 5. You could do that same idea where you just went from 1 to 4. If you move that whole thing up 2 frets, that same exact pattern, you know, that's going from a 2 dominant chord to a 5 dominant chord. So you're sort of outlining that chord movement. Just as you went from 1 to 4, you add a whole step to that. It works for going from 2 to 5. So that's something that you can play. So when you're going from 1 to 4, there, let's see it. Why don't you try that out?
Go to the 2.
Yeah, so once you finish playing that, go back to strings 1 and 2 and bring the bar up 2 frets. So you'll be at fret 6 when you start it the second time. Fret 6. Strings 1 and 2. So you start at fret 4, and you should have these 2 notes. Then you go back to strings 1 and 2, and you're up 2 more frets when you start. We're going to try again.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. Nice. Let's switch gears a little bit. That's a little bit of language, you know, around 1 chords, 4 chords, and you know, some stuff there. Let's I'm going to show you some scale stuff so we can kind of add that in. And we could even take a look at that intro that you know. So first things first, have you done much slant bar? You slanted the bar yet much?
A little bit.
Okay. So I'm going to try and show you what Jerry Bird would call proper technique, you know. So I'll use this one out here so you can see a little bit better. And I'm just going to start here at the 7th fret because that's kind of in the middle of the screen. And I'm going to do a forward slant, and I'm just going to leave the back of the bar over the 7th fret area, and I'm going to bring the tip of the bar up to the 8th fret. And I'm going to play on strings 1 and 2. So my goal is to just draw a straight line with the bar from string 2 at the 7th fret to string 8 or string 1 at the 8th fret. And if you're playing that on your guitar down here, that would be, if you were at the 7th fret. Now, you can do that with a number of sets of strings. You could do it with 2 strings right next to each other. You could do it play 1, skip 1, play 1. So strings 1 and 3. You can do the same thing where you play 1, skip 2, and then play 1. And so on and so forth. You could do 3 if you wanted to, although at that point, a lot of what you would have heard in like the country music is going to use 2 strings right next to each other, or you're going to skip 2 strings. And we call those intervals like thirds and sixths. So you'd have like a root and a major third, you know, because if in your 6th tuning, if one of your strings is a root, one's a 3, one's a 5, and one's a 6, you know, you're probably only playing a 5th if you have like your you know, root and 5th. Root and 5th on strings 2 and 4. So anyways, if you play 2 next to each other, those are thirds. If you play where you skip 2 in the middle, those are sixths. And if you're skipping 1, it's probably a 5th. So try that a little bit. Your goal is to keep your index finger on the top of the bar here, if you can. And you kind of want to use that as a pivot point. You're going to use your thumb to crank the back of the bar back. And then these fingers are laying on the strings back here. So your goal should be to have your wrist straight. while you do it. Instead of going like that, you're trying to make the maneuver with just your fingers.
I see.
And invariably, what's going to happen is, I'm going to over-exaggerate this from this camera angle. Your arm's going to kind of, your hand is somewhat rotating this way. It has to, in order for you to, like, you know, this is sort of exaggerated, but your hand is going to rotate 90 degrees a little bit. Maybe not 90, but, you know, upwards like that. And it's going to feel really weird and strange to do this because, you know, this is not a natural movement. And, you know, maybe the bar wants to go, and it's hard to hold on to when you're doing this. But that's okay. Just pick it up again and try it again. So a good practice that you can do when you're working on your slants is just say, take 2 strings. So I've got I'm at fret 7, strings 1 and 2. And what you can do is you can practice just moving one of the notes and trying to keep control over the bar. So I could move the back note or the bottom note, or I can move the top note. And your goal is to try to keep the one of the tones like straight. You don't want it to move, which is kind of a challenge because this thing's slippery and, you know, it goes all over the place. So that's a good exercise that you can do. Maybe try that a couple of times, and then I'll start to show you a scale that we can do, how to play a major scale using thirds and sixths. And then I can show you how we can use those slants to do it also. And then we can learn those intros, because they're just a major scale.
Yeah, I think I was trying to pick up on some like whip here stuff earlier.
Oh yeah. Also, I'll give you this hint because it took me a while to figure this out. When your bar is like this, and you're trying to get it to go back to straight, it's kind of hard to do that. Like a lot of times you'll want to like twist your arm or move your wrist. And what you can do instead is your middle finger, if you push down and you try to like just push that finger back down onto the strings, if you apply downward pressure with this knuckle right here, it'll eventually push the bar back. And you don't necessarily need the other fingers to do that. I'm doing most of the work with just these 2 fingers. I'm keeping this index finger, and I've kind of got a grip like that.
Oh yeah.
That makes sense. Now, obviously, different sized bars are gonna, you know, it's gonna protrude out more or whatever. But the concepts are generally the same. You're gonna push down with that knuckle as I'm kind of pushing the tip of the bar here, and then you're gonna have your thumb over here ready to catch it so it's straight, you know. And again, when you're practicing this, you might accidentally just chuck the bar. That's okay. Just pick it back up and do it again. Okay, so I'll show you this little scale here. Let's go back to our key of E. So at the 4th fret. So one thing, we're going to grab our, what is that, 5, 4, and 2. That's one of our major, that's That's one of our major chord grips. So that's an E major chord with the E on the top. That's what that is. And what we can do, we'll do a sixth. We'll play the scale in sixths. So what we're going to do is each note is going to move up the way it's supposed to in the scale. Now, if we kept this whole thing, if we kept it all straight bar, then we'd be playing the wrong intervals. So to keep it in the key of E, we have to do some slants in between. So we know our 4 chord in the key of E is up here at the 9th fret. And we know that that's legal straight bar. We also know that our 5 chord is in straight bar. Also legal to play in straight bar. We're not going to play that middle note. We're just going to play the top 2. So play 1, skip 2, play 1. Strings 2 and 5. And we're going to start at our 4th fret. And then we're going to do that forward slant that we just did. The back of the bar is going to be at fret 6, and the front of the bar is going to be at fret 7. I'm sorry, 5 and 6. 4 is where we started. We're going to have it over 5 and 6. And then we move that shape 2 frets up to be over 7 and 8. So let's just try that. Start at 4. And then go into your slant over 5 and 6. Yeah, even just see if you can slide into it. So strings 2 and 5, start at 4, and slide it into the bottom of the bar will be at over fret 5, and the top of the bar will be over at fret 6. Same strings. Say that again?
What was the strings?
Strings 2 and 5. 2 and 5. Should sound something like this. All right, so you start there and then slide it into that forward slant. Now you're going to go take that slant, keep the bar slanted, and go 2 frets up. And then you're going to straighten the bar out as you get to fret 9, where your 4 chord is. Now you should have a straight bar. Yeah, and then bring that up 2 frets, and you got a 5 chord. Now you could do the same thing, and you could keep going. If you wanted to play the 6, and you'd do the same thing again. You'd go back to the forward slant, the slant bar. And then you'd do the same thing again. You'd bring your slant bar up 2 more frets. And then you'd straighten the bar out at the octave. So if you notice, you got a little bit of a pattern.
Yeah.
There's at the root, and then there's a 2, and the 3, then there's a 4 chord, 5 chord, 6, 7, and then there's a root again. And we have a straight bar, and then we have a slant bar. Then we have another slant bar, straight bar, straight bar, slant bar, slant bar, straight bar. So you kind of have this little pattern here, which can be helpful. I kind of biffed this up, didn't I? Is there a way to see this? Well, try it while you got that on the screen there. I mean, I guess you got to look down at the steel. But does that make sense? Where you start straight and then you go to, you got your slant bar, slant bar.
Let's see. It's 2 like
It's kind of like 1, and then you got 2 slant bar, 2 straight bar, 2 slant bar, reset. Yeah, give it a shot. See if you can play it. And then your straight bar is going to come out on the 4 chord, which should be at the 9th fret. Yeah. Maybe it would be helpful if I wrote some frets down for you.
Yeah.
Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Can you see those?
Yeah.
So I usually like to think about the top of the bar. I know that the top of the bar is going up 2 frets, and then it goes up 1. And then you just know if you need to straighten it out or not. So the top's going up 2, and you're going into a slant on the first one. Angle it out, go up 2, straighten it out, go up 1. Keep it straight, go up 2. Slant it, go up 2. Slant it, go up 2 more. All right. I'm going to write this out for you, and this can be something you can practice. I might also, I don't know, make a little different video because there's 2 ways you can play this, basically. You can play it with slants or you can play it in straight bar. But if you play it in straight bar, that means you have to jump which sets of strings you're playing. So sometimes you're playing strings 2 and 5, and sometimes you're playing strings 1 and 4 in the C6 tuning we're using. So for example, I can play this scale that we just did. See, there's your durs. You can play that in the slant bar, or you can play it in straight bar, where you skip strings. Or sorry, not skip strings, switch which strings you're playing. So I'll try and call that out. Here's 2 and 5. Here's 1 and 4. Staying on 1 and 4. And then here's 2 and 5 again. You have to do a lot more jumping with your left hand. And you remove the ability to, as Jerry Bird would say, be liquid. You know, when you switch strings, you got to mute it and you got to start a new sound. But if you stay on the same strings, you can get that sound, the liquid sound. Now, maybe you don't want the liquid sound. Maybe you want to switch string sets and you want to make sure that you're in tune. You know, fair enough. Don Helms did that a lot, but he also did slant the bars. So, you know, it's good to learn both. So I can write something out like this, maybe a little bigger, send you a photo, something like this, where you actually have some fret markers. And I can show you how to do it with strings, just staying on one set of strings, and then how to go to another set of strings.
All right.
And here's the reason I want you to learn this. It's because when we play something like Cold, Cold Heart, that's actually all that we're doing is we're just grabbing 2 notes. Sometimes they're thirds, 2 notes right next to each other. And sometimes they're sixths, where you have 2 strings in between the notes. And all you're doing is going up and down the scale. You're just, you know, and he does a little. That's the scale. Those were the first 4 we did. And he's just walking it back to the home key. And if you wanted to do it where you didn't slant the bar, you could do. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Are you hearing where, like, oh, here's like a musical concept and like why we should practice it, but then in the context of like, oh, I'm actually trying to learn how to play songs, this is why this is maybe helpful.
Yeah, I understand now. Just like how the it's just like it's progression. It sounds really good.
Yeah, and it's like the other thing is because we're only grabbing 2 notes, like the chord that the band's playing might be, you know, if we kept with our E example, key of E, they might be playing the 5 chord. They might be playing a B7 or a B chord while we're playing, you know. And then they switch to the 1 chord right here. You know? So I tend to think like, sorry, when you write it all out and you were to write, say, the notes that are in the 5-7 chord, a B7 chord, and you were to make a scale around the B7 chord, they're actually all the same notes that are in an E major scale would be the same notes in a B7 scale. So that's why if you learn the E major scale, you actually are going to learn a whole bunch of other scales. And so when you learn to walk around with them with just 2 notes, you can get some really cool sounding things. And I feel like that's typically where you find a lot of those melodic lines that are in stuff that Hank and other steel players were doing in the, you know, in the 50s. There's some little things that they would do. There's some little licks, you know, the And again, those are those sixths. And then you go 2 frets back. And then you go from strings 1 and 4 down to strings 2 and 5. And then you take them. You walk it chromatically back to your chord. You know, that's just me playing that sixth where we did that major scale. And then I said, okay, I'm going to slant and go to that 2. This 2 one that we had up here. You know, it's that one. And then I just chromatically went to the 3 one. Just walked it up and down. So I'm going to write this out. That'll be some of your homework, I guess. And then if you can get this down, we can just like take a look at some recordings next time, and we'll just dissect like, oh, here's a recording and that's this part of it, or that's that part of it.
All right.
Does that sound like a bad idea?
Nah.
All right, cool.